Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Earthen's Den. And before you get all pumped up, let me just go ahead and say this, because before we get into this episode, you've read the title, right? We're talking about opportunists. We're talking about just strength and being someone who's ambitious and having goals for yourself. I definitely think this podcast episode can go both ways, So yeah, first things first, I really don't feel as though you can actually live until you survived. You know what I mean? I think until you've survived, that's the moment where you can actually start to live. And the reason I say that is because, when you're getting through life, you need to be there takes a lot of mental strength and willpower to actually live on this earth. You know what I mean? We understand that God is definitely above all things and that it's God who renews our strength. But to live and to just survive, right, on this earth, it just takes a lot of mental strength and it takes a lot of mental fortitude to be able to pick yourself back up after life's series, of knockdowns and disappointments. And so with that being said, when it comes to actually taking the time to live life, you've got to survive first, because you don't really know sunshine until you've experienced rain, and yeah, you may be familiar with the sunshine, but you ain't really sitting outside with your toes out, you know what I mean, sitting in the grass, actually enjoying. You know what I mean? You're not really enjoying the sunshine until you've experienced the rain. Sunshine is something you may actually take for granted. You know what I mean? Until you've gone through the rain and then you start to realize oh man, yeah, the grass is definitely green. You know what I mean? It's possibilities out there, So I just want to say that first thing foremost. But so thank you guys so much for tuning in today's episode. We're going to just go ahead and get right into this because especially in today's times, what I've seen with so many people, I've seen this with men and women. I hear a lot of the conversations that are being had about certain things. And, it's interesting because I typically, historically, stereotypically, it's always been men having these stories, but I'm actually seeing it a lot more in women now as women do, climb the corporate ranks and the entrepreneurial ranks and, whatever rank. And statistically, women are definitely in a space where they're coming up and where we're coming up. I said we're coming up and we're making more money and we're going after these things. And so something that I see with so many people is this opportunist kind of characteristic. And I don't think people realize it. I don't think women are aware of it as they should be, but I definitely see it in men. And, for a very long time in my life, I had never seen that because I didn't really know anyone, or at least I didn't think I knew anyone. You know what I mean? I didn't hang around girls like that, so I'd never really seen that. But it's a real thing. There are people men and women, you know what I mean, who literally will ride somebody's entire coattail because they know that within themselves, they can't make it on their own. You see what I'm saying? They know that they're going to have to use people and pull on people. Now, I personally think that this is really just due to laziness. A lot of people talk that talk, but I'm going to tell you straight up, when it comes to being successful, it's hard. It's literally hard to do the hard things. It's hard to stick with something and want to continuously do it when you look stupid and when you're growing and you're progressing in it and, you're making mistakes. Or for example, you may have a podcast and how it is in the beginning. You start out one way or you start off saying some things. You're like, oh man, I don't like the way I said that. Or, I said that podcast, I made that podcast, but I've grown from it a month later and I'm like, oh, that's so cringe, So it's it's a lot of that, that's just kind of the internal thing. But even just to continuously do something every day consistently and not necessarily get this grandiose reward that you may be expecting at the finish line, you know what I mean, it takes a lot of work to be able to put forth the effort to actually pursue something. Entrepreneurship is not easy. That's a lot. Being an entrepreneur is a lot, you know what I mean? And so for me, I always coupled that with just doing something that I enjoyed and just doing what it is that I love because I was aware of that. I talked to you guys in the previous episode. I personally am a very good decision maker. So, whenever I make a decision, I always consider the long-term effects of what I'm going to do. Okay, I know if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to take this career path, this is going to be 3 years here, in the next couple of years, this is where I see it. This is where I want to take it, And so anyway, It's something I notice with a lot of people. And there are a lot of people who come into your life, and, if you're someone who is on your journey and you know that you're going to be successful and you're working towards your goals and your dreams, you understand that you can hit some very low lows. It's easier said than done when people say, oh, pick your head up and keep it pushing. I personally think that those people are the people who've never necessarily wanted something. It's an excruciating amount of pain to want something and not get it, and to actually work very hard for it and it literally not come to pass. Like, that is so crazy. That does something to your self-esteem. That does something to your confidence. That's just how you questioning God. It's a whole process in that, so it's very easy to say, oh, you could just keep it pushing and just get back up, but until you have had those disappointments in your life, you will never know what that's really like. And what I just see with so many people today, it's like so many people are lazy. They're very lazy. You have people who think that working hard is working on a job, and that's fine, right? It definitely requires manual and like mental labor. You know what I mean? Like physical labor. Like, it's definitely not something that I would say that's particularly easy if that's, where you're at right now in your life. But, you also understand that if that's not where you want to be, then it's all in vain, right? It's not like it's capped. You know what I mean? We could talk about all the negative aspects, but, at the end of the day, man, like, there are really people out here who will ride your freaking coattail, and they will ride it till the wheels fall off, and they will play a role. That's why I had to grow to understand that, when a person shows you who they are, you got to believe that, and I think when you start to think in abundance of like the 8 or however billion people on this planet, then you can stop giving everybody the benefit of the doubt who doesn't really deserve that. Like, if you're just meeting a person, you shouldn't really be giving everybody the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? You really shouldn't, because you don't know them. You don't know them. So what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, I think it's evidently, right, it's typically people who hurt us that we know, right? So, like, you don't really need to come into everything like, oh, is this person gonna, you know what I mean? Because typically the people who hurt us the most are those in which we know, right? It's a friend, it's a family member, it's a cousin, it's somebody that we've been rocking with. So it's not really like a stranger. So I don't think you need to be on defense all the time. But I just think overall, like, when someone shows you who they are, you got to believe them and accept that what they're showing you. So I think a lot of opportunities definitely come in your life where, you may be in a time where you may be feeling a little vulnerable. You know what I mean? I think men and women, I think you may be feeling a little vulnerable. You may be uncertain about some points in your life. And, it's a sense of narcissism a little bit, right? Because a person can come into your life and be like the biggest cheerleader for you. And, the moment that you realize like, all right, thank you, I appreciate it, that's good. But, I'm actually going to need a little bit more than, your hand clapping, because I got some technical stuff to do. And, although I appreciate the lip service, you know what I mean? That's not really anything that's, pushing me forward. Now, I think it depends on you and, the situation, right? Because I want to be clear that, having people who support you in any capacity is a blessing. Like, whether it's a like, a post, a comment, a reshare, or even just a kind word, like, it definitely makes a difference. But if you know, then you know, right? You know that at the end of the day, you really do have to be self-motivated. Like, you can't, you know what I mean? Because if a person is coming into your life and all they're bringing is motivation and encouragement, don't get me wrong, I think that's a beautiful thing to have in your life. But, there are just certain things in life that you're going to need a little bit more than just an encouraging word. Like, you can personally get that on YouTube, because at the end of the day, it's not shallow, but it's like, you have to be self-motivated. You know what I mean? So it's like when your fire is already lit, you don't need somebody to come and get you activated. So the thing about this here, and sometimes this is seasonal, these are seasonal type people that come into your life, but like, the moment that you start having someone pouring all this gas in your fire, not gas in your fire, but you having someone out here trying to like lit the flame for you under you, you become dependent on that person. And I think that a lot of opportunists actually like that. They like that. Like, they seek people who are vulnerable. They seek people who are insecure, who may not believe in themselves, or who may share their dreams. And the opportunists can see where they can kind of finagle their way in there and get the benefit, and maybe throw you something on the side, but it's not really to your best your best benefit. It's not really in your best interest. And I want to stop and pause for a second here too, because I think, I want to be very clear that when it comes to my content and the information that I share, it's really just because I understand it and I see what it is. And like I said, I'm never telling anyone to come out here and just be like savage, cold-hearted, you know what I mean? Like completely like untrustworthy of others. Like that's not the message that I'm trying to portray. But what I am saying is like, you're going to have a little street smarts. Okay. You're going to have a little street smarts. You're going to have a little bit of insight in regards to people. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people who may be working on their businesses or whatever, but you may not have had a vast array of like experiences to really come in to say like, okay, I do have street smarts. Or you may have only been around your friends since high school. And so, you met other people from different high schools or, from your city or you know what I mean? But you haven't really been in different environments to understand how people are. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think that that's something that a lot of young people lack, and that's exposure. So, for me, I just want to share certain things like that I've learned because I know that it can help a lot of people. So anyway, that's my whole podcast is about. So I just wanted to let you guys know that I wasn't coming from a projectory type of space, and I'm really just coming from like a real honest space. You know what I mean? So just receive this message with love and care. So moving forward, people will come into your life and they'll play a role, you know what I mean? And they'll definitely, if you're insecure and you got somebody pouring into your cup, you see what I mean? It becomes one of those things where it's like, oh, this feels so good. This person picked me back up, right? But it's manipulative. And then the reason why it's manipulative is because you need to be able to fill your own cup. If your cup is empty, you need to shut down shop, okay? Close the parlor. You got to go back and you got to figure that out. You know what I mean? You have to start to sit in a space where you can fill your own cup. You know what I mean? Like you don't let someone pour into your empty cup, because the thing is when they stop pouring, then what you're going to have, it's not going to be one of those things where it's overflowing. That's not how that works. You know what I mean? And if it's someone who doesn't have the right intentions towards you right now, it becomes, they're going to look at you and be like, yeah, so now you're good. Now all I did was, light your flame, but you did all the work. You carried out the mission. Now I need compensation from you. Okay, now they're going to be looking at you like, look, you owe me something. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that you should be selfish. Like, hear me clearly. I think, honestly, you guys, I think that this message is going to hit for you if you understand it. Because, I know a lot of times, especially in today's world, like the last thing I ever want to promote is like hate and all this selfishness and all that. But what I am saying is like, you just got to be smart when dealing with different people and discerning spirits. So anyway, I know I'm back and forth on this, but I just want you guys to hear me clearly. You know what I mean? So anyway, it's very manipulative because it's kind of like a person will put the rug under you and then they'll pull it from under you. You see what I'm saying? Or you'll reach a certain point and it's like this person really has done none of the work, but they may be in your ear. They may have, at this point, I ain't going to say manipulated you, but low key, like manipulated you. You know what I mean? And then you're going to be sitting here feeling like you have to dish out all your good eggs, all the fruits of your labor to someone who really didn't contribute anything but some kind words. You see what I mean? So I think, understand that there's a totality there, and you have to understand how you want to dish out your fruit and what fruit you want to sow into the lives of others, what seeds you want to sow, and how you decide to engage with people with your gifts, your love, your resources, or whatever. I think that this episode was, for me, it was intended to really let you guys know, like, this is how you can stop people from taking advantage of you. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not in a space where your cup is full and you're self-assured and you good on you, then the last thing you want to do is go out here and seek validation from other people, because it'll never be what you expect it to be. And, it breaks my heart because I actually see a lot of men and women settling for this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think by any means am I someone who's like, oh, what are you bringing to the table? Like, to me, that's just irrelevant. Like, it's so much more than that for me. But I just think at the end of the day, it's like I see so many men and women settling for people who literally are just like standing here in a position kind of like a freaking one of the door tags that you put on your door when you're like, hey, D&D. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things where it's like it's kind of like an applique. Like, it's not really like a garment. It's not a nice bag. It's not some cute shoes. It's not a fabulous hat. It's not a nice watch. They're just the key tag on your hotel door. It's just not giving. It's not giving anything. And it just looks tacky. Do you see what I'm saying? It's just not a good look. And so you want to be mindful that you are loving yourself and your cup is full. And, what other people pour into you, it's like, okay, great. This is awesome. We can enjoy this together. We can cheers on this because you're full. I'm full. You're good to go. I'm good to go. I'm not having to pour all of me over here into you because you're insecure or you're not sure about yourself. You're not having to pour all of you into me. We just have a very healthy time. We're dancing, we're clanking. Okay, your cup is still full after the dance. My cup is still full after the dance. And yeah, this is great. You know what I mean? So that's the type of energy you want to carry with yourself, and you want to be mindful. Like I said, you want to be mindful. Like I'm not saying don't let anybody pour into you, and I'm definitely not saying don't receive, but you got to understand that not all help is good help. There are people who will do things for you just so they could say, okay, yeah, remember when I did that for you? Turn around and, you know what I mean? Oh, wait, hold on, wait a minute. I ain't, I'm saying like turn around and, reciprocate, but it's in a way that's demanding. It's not in a way that's loving. And them giving to you was never with just out of pure generosity. It was more so out of expectation. Do you see what I'm saying? So, this is going to be, I think that if you get it, then you get it. And I think if you have a little bit of street smarts, if you don't, well, you do now, right? You do now. But, you just have to understand that, because I think a lot of times, especially in today's society, you want to be a loving person, and you still are a loving person. But I think now more than ever, I say this 10 times over, guard your heart. I'm telling you, honey, I was like that shoe was finna drop and I was finna be a freaking like beast mode. Like I was done. You know what I mean? And, that's not me. So I had to really sit in a space and like assess my life, assess just like everything about myself. Like, okay, let me just do a whole little 180 real quick, because it's very easy, especially after a series of disappointments or opportunity or situations that maybe didn't work out, or, people coming into your life and just doing you wrong and dogging you out, honey. You got to get tougher and get like tougher in a way of like get smarter. You know what I mean? Get better. Like, that's just what, get better, like bump all the other words. Like literally when situations occur in your life, you have to get better, not bitter, So I think that this can help a lot of people. I think it can save you a lot of trouble. I'm someone who's like, I like to learn my own experiences. That's my biggest thing. I glean a lot from my life. I spend a lot of alone time. I'm always in a space of self-reflection. I got to a point where the scales are balanced now, because it definitely was like a little OD. And I'm like, okay, girl, like we can't be out here, you know what I mean? Getting into ourselves like that. Like it's not that serious. But yeah, so I think, you just have to learn from your own experiences. But I will say this. If you can hear it and then you see it, or maybe it was like a confirmation, then it hits a little different. And like I said in the previous episode, I just don't think that every experience needs to be a hard-on lesson. Like sometimes you could just, hear it and you're like, okay, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I still have a little curiosity in that sense. So it's like, I struggle with that, but I realize that, you know what I mean? Not everything has to be such a hard, like, mind-blowing lesson. Like some things you can actually just learn, and you can kind of just apply them to your life and just be cool, but like I said, it's different because the journalist in me, I'm always like really curious about certain things, but not when it comes to myself. You know what I mean? Like, don't put yourself in these situations, because I realized that back to this very beginning of this episode, not everybody is strong enough to bounce back from certain experiences. You know what I mean? And I think that your strength is definitely something that's cultivated in time. And some people, we're all honest. You got to be honest with yourself, right? Not everybody has had, childhoods where it was traumatic or rough, or, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you may have had something, but at the end of the day, we do kind of have to sit in a space where we understand that not everybody has had a traumatic childhood. Like, there are some people who have had some very loving parents, and it doesn't mean that they're not street smart. It doesn't, you know what I mean? But they're not going to be as like, how that kid, like, who grew up, urban city type, he has a lot of heart. You know what I mean? We call it heart. And this may be like the personification of the quote unquote bad boy, but we're not talking about it in terms of that. We're just talking about in terms of like what a person's been through, right? Versus the kid who grew up with, that lived in like Lakota. You know what I mean? It's not going to be the same. Like it's just not going to be the same. And that's okay, but it's like, you can still avoid certain situations, I think. But I don't know. I hope it was insightful. Like I said, glean from it, understand that, I'm definitely where I'm coming from in this episode, because it could just help a lot of people. It could just save you on your journey. Like the last thing you really ain't trying to be having, you don't want anybody who's just going to jump on ship and just sit there and be like, yeah, steer it. You got it. Push it. Bop it. Twist it. turn it. Like, you don't, do you really want someone in your ear while you're trying to like get us over here across the Red Sea? Like, do you really want somebody in your ear who's like, bop it, push it? You know what I mean? Whole boat seeking. It's a whole storm out here. We got cargo, we got babies on board, and they just over there, bop it, push it, twist it, spin it. Like, do you really want that? Do you really want that? You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just to a point where I think in 2021, especially with social media, we are in the age of deception. Ooh, boom. That's a book in itself. We are in the age of deception. You got to start looking at the deeper thing, shorty. Like, you have to really look at a person for who they are. Okay. And I'm going to leave it with that. And I hope everybody has an amazing night.